So moving on then now to item 9, the 2021 Resident Survey Action Plan. Lynn, welcome to the table. Thanks for the report and thanks for the work that you've done on this. So if you've got some introductory remarks, this has already been the subject of a briefing, obviously, but if you've got some introductory remarks, and then we'll move to questions. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much for the opportunity to provide a brief summary of the report and what we are planning to do. As you're aware, the resident survey results were reported to Council earlier this year. Highlights were areas delivering well included waste management, parks and libraries. However, we also identified a number of areas for improvement. They included roading, water and understanding of council decision making. We take our residents' feedback very seriously, and that's why this time we want to put in place a coordinated action plan. It has 5 main components. One is to really focus on delivery of our levels of service. Secondly, to enhance our customer service, culture, tools and skills. To improve the methodology and representativeness of the survey itself, because we're not convinced that it's fully capturing the wide range of community views. Fourthly, to take a new approach to communicating our performance and ensuring that it actually has meaning to our communities, as opposed to perhaps some of the approaches we've taken in the past. And finally, we want to enhance our engagement with communities so that their understanding and engagement with council decision making is improved. So the proposal is that the committee receive this report, but I'm very happy to answer any questions first.
Thank you very much. So are there questions on the report? Tim and then Jake. Tim.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lynn. Just with the B, enhance customer service, I guess the relationship between, say, the call centre, who are at the coal face, and that secondary contact into the actual business itself, be really good to understand that and how that, because at times, people say, well, I've rung the call centre and, nothing really happens. But we know that secondary, that next set of people are really busy as well. So I guess it's just that transaction and that communication. 'Cause I do feel for the call centre, because at times they get frustrated that people don't react.
So there's a couple of elements there. One is information technology and tools. So at the moment, we don't have the right level of tracking of customer service requests. Councillors received a briefing about 4 to 6 weeks ago about the Hybris enhancement. That is due to go live towards the end of this year, and also a further enhancement next year. That will give a much greater level of visibility as to where tasks are in the system and what needs to be done to close them off. So that is one specific program of work that's designed to improve that. Secondly, I think there's work to be done on culture, and so we are looking at enhancing our customer service training across the organisation, because it's that responsiveness and understanding the need for a timely, accurate response that's very important. So we have some work to do there. I think the call centre is leading the charge, as it were, and we need to expand that philosophy right across the organisation. So that's partly why that's in as number 2.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jake.
In terms of improving survey methodology and responsiveness, do you not have confidence in the methodology that the survey currently has, or are you unsure whether the results are accurate?
They're not fully representative, and I might ask colleague Kath Jameson, who is the manager of the survey, to go into a little bit more detail here. We think we can make some improvements. So, Kath.
The survey, when you're doing telephone surveys and face-to-face surveys and online surveys, obviously there are challenges in terms of getting at the right groups of people. So we want to do more about looking at booster samples, for example, of certain ethnic groups. We're looking at different age groups in the survey. We have been tracking that over time anyway, but we're now adding into every single survey questions about ethnicity and making sure that the different age brackets are in as well. So that's something that after this next one we'll be able to get a much better handle what the representativeness is of the various components of it.
Improving the representativeness, that's great. We
Yeah.
should always be trying to do that in
Yeah.
everything we do. But I'm just trying to clarify, you're not saying that you don't think there's anything incorrect. You don't think that the current surveys we've been running have been giving us an incorrect picture?
I don't think so at all.
'Cause the trend
it's
is
a
clear.
comprehensive program,
Yeah.
and we've got a number of different methodologies that are used as part of the survey, the survey program, because it's obviously not just one survey. So I think the fact that we are using a number of different methodologies means that we are sort of covering many different bases, and it's really a very large scale programming. We survey over 6,000 people each year, so I'm pretty confident in it.
Oh, good, because when I read it, it sort of read as if here's all the great things we're going to do to improve, but also we're unsure whether there's anything to actually improve upon, but I'm just wanting to...
I think they're
not
really
the case.
enhancements to just make it even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So changing or improving the survey methodology, will that affect our ability to compare results year on year? Because that obviously is one of the big things about tracking whether we're improving or not. If there are changes made to the survey, will that remove our ability to make those direct comparisons, or we will still be able to do that?
I think we'll still be able to track year on year. The sorts of enhancements that we're making are probably more about just adding some more information that helps us understand a little bit more about the people who are responding.
Yeah.
We are making some reasonably minor adjustments to questions this year to simplify them a bit, particularly given that we don't know, for example, whether we might be in lockdown or with limited ability to have face-to-face contact during our main survey period. So to make sure that we can still deliver results to you early next year, we are simplifying some of the questions to make them perhaps easier for people to understand, but the essence of them is not changing, so that ability to track over time should still be there.
Thank you. Pauline.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because I'm a little bit suspicious about, must be the questions, because the top 4 or 5 are always the nice things, like to have your rubbish removed, everyone's really satisfied with that, your parks, libraries, recreation centres, the nice to have things, people go, yeah, and I wonder if as it goes down, we get into stuff that perhaps they don't understand so much about, particularly the complexities around the 3 waters, and we might get a negative there just on the chlorine, it's not us. So I'm wondering too, do you have any way that you collect and collate the positive feedback that comes through either the media, through letters to the editor like we saw last week from a resident about the Dyers Pass Road works up there, and the praise that he gave the council for delivering that, and through elected members? Do you have any way that you collate the positive responses?
I think that Di's team do media tracking, and that information is available as well. The resident survey itself reports directly on the results of the surveys themselves, and that's for the level of service reporting. The questions are designed in a way so that residents can answer them. And there's randomisation of questions, so it's not like they get all the good stuff first. Although that said, some of the face-to-face surveys that go on over the summer tend to be services, I suppose, that people generally, probably right across the country, are more positive about, things like libraries and events and that sort of thing, versus the bigger infrastructure services where they might be more likely to be not quite so happy.
Yeah, there's another thing too that, I've used the call centre a lot, and a lot of people I've spoken to who've used it have nothing but praise for the people there. They're absolutely amazing. But the negative feedback I sometimes get back, and I think this is what Tim might have been alluding to, is that sometimes a staff member might go out to actually look at the program, and they don't seem to, they may not have the skills, and they're not actually employed for those skills, they're employed for their technical skills. So it's that barrier that will be a challenge to understand, and sometimes they don't escalate something because they'll just make a decision on the spot, it's a no, and then that's not delivered very
and we
nicely.
definitely are seeing in the results that come through that that first point of contact goes really well, and
Yeah.
particularly when it's either face-to-face at one of our counters or on the telephone.
Yeah.
Not quite so great with emails, but it's that next tier down of what happens between that first point of contact and then, you know, for some people it disappears into the ether and they say, I never hear back, I haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
Or they may not like the response they get. You know, there are a number of things that happen at that next tier down, and as Lynn was saying, you know, we're putting in place things that actually enhance our ability to address that level of customer service.
That's good. But I still think it's worth collating elected members' positive feedback that we get somehow and putting it at maybe parallel to this, or just because it's really important that we collect the positive stuff, and we do get positive stuff. So
So perhaps I can just make a further comment on that, Pauline, and that is that one of the opportunities that arises with the communication of our performance is that we will be able to perhaps take some of those verbatim pieces of feedback and include that in the overall report, because it is a combination of data and the actual experience of our customers that together gives the full picture.
good.
The other key thing is we are convinced that this needs to be a completely integrated response. So it's not just the customer service team. This has to go into the DNA of the organisation as a whole, and that's what the enhancement program is designed to address.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Diane, from a communications point of view, it'd be good to hear from you as well. Thank you.
Okay, I just was picking up on Councillor Cottle's first point about do we keep all the good as well as the bad. We definitely do. So from an internal perspective, we get a lot of really positive feedback. So there wouldn't be a week that we wouldn't get positive feedback that we actually send out to staff. And I think you do get Dawn's update each week, which has got a list of bouquets. And this is coming from all around the city, and that is definitely kept. We also do media monitoring. So while you get the media responses every day, an email, we also collate all the stories that are positive. And actually, when we analyse the stories, it's surprising. You often only notice the negative ones, but the biggest proportion are in the neutral sort of phase. You know, it could go either way. So there's probably, say, 20% positive, about 60%, you know, neutral, and then there's the ones that are bad. So it's not all negative, but people pick up on the negative.
Yeah,
so,
that's about...
Yeah, definitely we're keeping all... I could tell you on any given day what positive story came in, what negative story came in, because we do have all that information.
Yeah, but the thing is we need to, as Lynn's just explained, we need to get that positive stuff sitting alongside this to make a more holistic report.
Yep.
Thank you. So I've got Celeste and then Yanni. Celeste.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that lots of work's been done in this space, and I think the Newsline, those sort of stories are really great, and also very great to share as, you know, elected representatives. I just wondered if we'd gone out to the public with a list of practical options that might address some of the barriers to engagement, because I see that one of the suggestions was to get feedback from the community board, but that sort of skips out the residents. So I was thinking, for example, if we did X, you know, sort of getting people to say increase use of technology at the local level, like are there any other specific ways of gathering that feedback?
The answer is we are looking at a number of these. John Fussell has a whole list. I'll try to recall some of those. Some of the things we have already done have included ensuring that the important documents are translated. So quite often we do focus our communications on people who have got the same background, English language speaking, etc. So we need a much greater diversity of opportunities for engagement. There's also a number of things that we can do in the community engagement space, and I might ask Di to comment on that in terms of the different ways in which we can encourage people to have an input. An example was the LTP tool, where people could actually look online and look at what the impacts of decisions could be in their local areas, rather than just look at a 50-page document. So Di, you might like to add some examples of the engagement processes.
Yeah, so probably, you know, we're always trying to do things differently. So I'll talk about the current engagement that's out around coastal hazards. So we've got a drop-in session this afternoon, you know, and we may have to not go ahead with that, but we don't know. So, but you know, if we host a drop-in session, we get for these ones we're getting 5 people come along, etc. So, but if another organisation such as CCRU hosts a session about coastal hazards, 50 people come along. So it's really important that we actually piggyback on what's actually happening out there in the community, rather than the council, you know, trying to go it alone. So I think that's a thing that we're moving more and more into, is being where the people are and actually piggybacking on events that are already in the community. I think that's important. For the first time in this current consultation around coastal hazards, we've actually put in the Have Your Say form. Would you like to tell us what nationality you are? And then we're trying to sort of define people more as to so that we can identify what are the hard to reach communities, and actually then, as I say, go and connect directly with them. So there are barriers, and I think if we just relied on doing things the same old way, we're not going to. The public meeting days are gone. Drop-in sessions are sort of there, but as I say, we're not getting great turnouts, and it is, you know, a big push on our staff resource, having people sitting there for 2 people coming, and we actually had one the other day where nobody came. So we had all our banners up and all our stuff there. So. But as I say, the CCRU meeting, we're expecting about 50 people, so that's where we need to be, yeah.
Sorry, just are we getting feedback on sort of polling people on what they might think would improve engagement? For instance, some of the feedback I've gotten about the drop-in sessions, it's a great idea, but it's during the day.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's a barrier to engagement. So that maybe if there was technology incorporated into the drop-in sessions, people could.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah. Yeah.
So to your point, we continually need to evolve and innovate, because simply doing things the way we've done them is not necessarily going to keep pace with what the expectations are of our communities. I think there'll be some level of experimentation, and some of these things will work and some won't. Equally, as Di has said, some of the partnering strategies can work really well. So, for example, for youth, working with Te Pai Pakari and also youth organisations across the city to get more of a sense as to what they would prefer, what is the level and nature of the engagement, be it social media, be it online, and a discussion online could be much better targeted, and that's the kind of area that we'll be developing into increasingly.
Thank you. I'm keen to keep moving at pace. We've got people that have been waiting for the next item for some time, and I'm very conscious of that. I've got Yanni and then Anne. But if we can just keep things moving quickly, that would be really good. So Yanni.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to check. Are you going to look at the way? I mean, you talk about just getting more information and using local community board forums and working more closely with community groups, and looking at how you do hearings and alternative ways for input into decision making. But are you actually going to look at the whole process? So, like, if someone comes to a community board and they're waiting for a year to get advice, or, you know, there's a public excluded briefing on the issue that they've raised, clearly they're not going to feel very engaged. So I'm just trying to understand if you're looking at a kind of end-to-end process around why people get disaffected or dissatisfied with the influence that they have, the decisions that we make, and the feeling of things that are either taking too long or just not going anywhere.
All I can comment on is that closing the loop is probably the most important thing around engagement. So if people lodge a question, and I think that came up before, it's really important that, and we do have this sort of system within our unit, and I know it is in other parts of council. So someone yesterday, or we had lots of calls yesterday, for example, to the call centre about the water reform decision, and how they could actually voice what they felt about it. So our holding statement was that the government's going to release a discussion document on it, and we'll be seeking feedback through that. So we've actually collected their names, and when that document comes out, we will actually forward it on to them to make sure they get it, and that they are explained the proper way to give their feedback. So that's one way, but all the time we're trying to close that loop. When people make a submission, that then we know they're interested in certain things, and then we can go back to them when we then go out with them to the public on something else of interest.
Because I think, like, if you take the LTP, I mean, the feedback I've had from submitters is they were really disappointed in the length of time it took to get a response, and the fact that the response didn't even acknowledge the content of their submission. So, I mean, I think there's things that we could be doing, and often, like, like our consultations, or we've agreed like playgrounds, for example, to be done. We've been through the whole public process of engagement, agreed to do it, and then they're delayed for almost over a year, and no communication goes out to people. So, yeah, I guess that closing the loop and also keeping people regularly informed is really critical.
So 2 brief comments. I completely agree with you. We can do better and we must do better. The second thing is, in relation to the LTP, there was a follow-up communication to all submitters, and I acknowledge perhaps the group that talked to you did not feel satisfied. However, we also got quite a lot of acknowledgement of people who were actually very appreciative of closing the loop. So we will not get it right in every single case, but what we can do is take on board your feedback and put that into the improvement plans from here.
Great, thank you very much. Anne?
Kia ora, thank you.
Sorry, just
Oh, sorry, Yanni.
no, just one other piece of feedback or comment really is, for those of us that represent areas that don't have access to digital as much as other areas do, I am really concerned in the trend to do a lot more stuff online, and away from sort of, the old tried and true method of newspaper or letterbox. And, like in the earthquake, one of the most successful things was people that put notices on lampposts, which sounds very old-fashioned, but actually was incredibly successful. So I guess I just wanted to make a plea that, I know cost savings and environmental reasons why we're not doing as much in hard copy, but there is a whole group of people that are being excluded because of how we're doing things digitally that we need to think about. So,
And we definitely do print still. We haven't abandoned print. We definitely put things still in advertising, still in newspapers, etc. Okay, our newspaper advertising, we have decreased our spend slightly, but we still do use those channels. We use every channel. We're actually fortunate that from a communication perspective, we've got more channels. So, and print is definitely still one of those.
but it's definitely not being used. I mean, we've definitely reduced how we're using it. Like, I've had community meetings in Bromley, which is an area that has low access to digital, where people are only emailed out. So people that came and gave an address, nothing got sent out, and I was told we wouldn't send stuff out to people. So if they don't have email, they're excluded.
So what we can do is take that specifically on board as part of our overall communications plan and see what we can do to
I think that's
those,
really important.
those
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah. All right, great. So Anne and then Sarah. Anne.
Thank you. So to me, that's all about using the strengths that we have and the networks that we have. There might be some people in the community who are the networkers and whom you need to actually get that information to and get it out there. The other thing I think is that I don't think we can expect people to come to us. We have to go to them. And is that a resource issue? Could we have in the malls a table that is just there with, ask me, I'm from council, that sort of person. Is that a reality, or is it beyond our resource?
I think Lynn might want to comment on this, but so the answer, so you've said, can we have a table in a mall? So what mall? Do you want it every mall? Do you want a table in every mall with a staff member there? Is it a staff member that people want to talk to, or is it an elected member that people want to talk to? So, these are all options that when it comes around to things such as LTP, we will do that in those cases. But to have someone sitting there 7 days a week, it is now, I don't know that resourcing, I don't think we have got those resources to be able to do it. Or not.
I don't think it would be 7 days a week. I think it just an ask me sort of kind of identification. I'm from council, ask me, I'm here 1 day a week, even at the weekends. I know there are issues. I think the other thing is I'm really pleased that you're identifying, TPP, and they actually are the network through which you can communicate with Pilot and Youth Council, so you don't need to do all of that. But Kath, the TPP did a survey and it wasn't, they needed a bit of help, so would it be possible for your team to perhaps come and chat with TPP and help them design a survey that would be,
and we're already talking to them, so we made that contact already.
And also the multicultural advisory group, same thing. So thanks. Great.
Thank you. Sarah.
Thanks so much. I know you guys do a huge amount of work in this space. I'm just looking at that at the action plan here, and I'm just wondering at what point there's lots of stuff that this is what we're doing, this is what we're going to look at, those kind of things. At what point, but do we start addressing those I guess following on a wee bit from both Yanni and Celeste, the barriers kind of issue. So we don't always know what all the barriers are. And I think at a couple of meetings ago, we were talking around some of the stuff, and Leanne mentioned the report from a year ago following that annual plan about actually talking to, it was sort of a representative group from the community about how they would like to be engaged, rather than council thinking they know best all the time about how we should engage. And so are we looking at doing that? Is that part of that investigate kind of work?
So I think we were sort of talking about sort of forums and which represent communities, and I know we've got a climate change workshop in about half an hour just to talk about how we're going to sort of start doing some of that behaviour change work around climate change, and we'll be referring to a sort of group of residents when we talk about that. So we're also looking at having maybe groups of residents, public forums, etc., that we can actually reference back to see what is the best way that they would like to receive information and engage with us, etc.
And are we going to be able to have residents involved in that who aren't residents who are already involved?
Yes.
So the problem is that we talk to residents groups and those kind of things. They're the groups who are already involved and not the ones that Yanni's talking about that aren't involved in the processes currently?
Yep, definitely. We're trying to get a representative of the community.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Chair. Quickly, one question. Thank you for this comprehensive report, particular 5 initiatives, very important. But my questions are regarding to the geographic area, because council in a daily basis, we already receive all those the issues through our call center, the email, or the digital, etc. Whether we, for the next stage, we have this initiative for the survey again, we might have prepared all those information, particularly regarding to the maybe in a different ward or community board, etc. Give the people, actually you concern some like traffic issue, parking issue, tree issue, or some other issue. We already done improve how much percentage, so give them, they have sufficient information, then the feedback to us may be more reasonable. Otherwise, just continue. This one. Second one is thank you, Dan. Thank you so much. You particularly continue to kind of improvement, to survey with the wide range of the people, like age, like ethnicity, etc. Very good. Particularly, I'm very impressed with your strengthen those communication, the survey. But please, just follow this criteria. Then probably get maybe different feedback. Otherwise, 49% long-term drop. This unsatisfaction, terrible. Yes.
Thank you. All right, so no further questions. I'm happy to move the recommendation. Jimmy, you'll second.
Yes.
Excellent. Is there any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So now